I never thought of myself as the kind of woman who obsessed over proposals. I always told myself love was about partnership, about the little things, the way someone remembers your coffee order, or how they hold your hand when you're anxious. But with Ryan, things felt different. He made me believe in forever, in the kind of love that made you want to stand in front of the world and say, "This is it. This is the person I choose." So when I logged into our joint credit card account that afternoon, it was just part of my usual routine. Bills, groceries, the occasional splurge, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, my eyes locked onto a $5,000 charge at an exclusive jewelry store. My breath caught in my throat. $5,000. Jewelry. My mind instantly spun with possibilities, my pulse quickening with something dangerously close to hope. Could this be it? The proposal I had secretly longed for but never dared to expect? I sat there, staring at the transaction, letting the idea bloom in my chest. I imagined the moment, the flickering candlelight, the weight of his hand in mine, the way his voice would shake just a little when he asked the question. A ring. It had to be a ring. I closed my laptop, my heart pounding. A slow smile crept onto my lips. Ryan wasn't the most romantic man in the world, but maybe, just maybe, he had been planning something special all along. I had no idea how wrong I was. The excitement stayed with me for days. Every time Ryan reached for his phone, every time he disappeared into the other room for a call, I wondered if he was finalizing plans. Was he picking out the perfect moment, waiting for the right setting? I told myself to be patient, to let the surprise unfold naturally, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. I started paying attention to the small details, looking for clues I had never bothered noticing before. Was he acting different? A little distracted, maybe? There were moments when he seemed lost in thought, his gaze flickering toward me with something I couldn't quite place. Nerves, perhaps? Anticipation? I convinced myself it had to be. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I studied his face in the dim glow of the screen. His jaw was tense, his fingers tapping absently against his knee. I wanted to ask, wanted to just blurt it out and say, "Ryan, are you planning something?" But I didn't. Instead, I curled into his side, pretending not to notice the way his body stiffened before relaxing again. The idea of an engagement had settled into me like a secret I wasn't supposed to know, and yet, it shaped everything. My heart felt lighter, my steps more deliberate. I even caught myself glancing at my hand in the mirror, imagining how a ring would look on my finger. I had no idea the truth was waiting, lurking just beneath the surface, ready to tear everything apart. The anticipation became intoxicating. Every time we went out, I wondered, is this it? A fancy dinner? A weekend getaway? Even the smallest gestures seemed loaded with meaning. When he pulled out my chair at a restaurant, when he reached for my hand during a walk, everything felt like a prelude to something bigger. I was living in a world of unspoken expectations, crafting a love story in my mind that wasn't mine to write. Then came the night he mentioned a surprise for the weekend. My heart nearly stopped. I forced myself to stay casual, to nod and smile as if the thought of a proposal hadn't already taken over my entire existence. This is it. This has to be it. I imagined how he'd do it, how the moment would unfold. Would he kneel? Would he whisper my name first, looking up at me with that quiet intensity I had fallen in love with? I barely slept, my mind spinning with every possibility. I told myself not to get carried away, to let things happen naturally, but the thought had already rooted itself deep inside me, weaving its way into my every breath. If someone had told me that night how wrong I was, how the reality of that $5,000 charge would shatter everything, I wouldn't have believed them. I would have laughed, brushed it off, convinced myself that Ryan was the man I thought he was. But the truth doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just comes, crashing in, unstoppable. And I was about to find out exactly what that meant. The jewelry store was just a short walk from my office, nestled between a designer boutique and a quiet little cafe where I sometimes grabbed my morning coffee. I hadn't planned on going inside, at least that's what I told myself. But curiosity has a way of pulling you in, whispering in your ear until you give in. Just take a look. It won't hurt. The bell above the door chimed as I stepped inside, the air instantly filled with the soft scent of polished wood and expensive perfume. Glass cases gleamed under the warm lighting, filled with diamonds that seemed to wink at me, secrets locked in their brilliant facets. I walked slowly, fingers tracing the edge of the nearest display, my heart pounding harder than it should have been. A sales associate noticed me, her smile warm and practiced. "Looking for something special?" she asked, her eyes scanning my face with the kind of effortless charm that made people feel important. I hesitated for only a second before saying, "Actually, I think my boyfriend was in here recently. Ryan Carter?" I tried to keep my voice light, casual, as if I were simply confirming a detail I already knew. Her smile widened. "Oh, yes. He picked out such a beautiful necklace. A truly stunning piece." Necklace. The word hit me like a slap, my breath catching in my throat. Necklace?" My voice barely made it past my lips. I forced a smile, nodding like it was nothing, like my entire world hadn't just tilted sideways. "Yeah, right. A necklace." My mouth was dry, my hands suddenly too still at my sides. The sales associate kept talking, her voice floating around me, but I only caught bits and pieces. Something about the design, how elegant it looked, how lucky the woman receiving it must be. Lucky. I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching myself nod along like some oblivious fool. My mind screamed at me to leave, to get out before I lost control, but my feet wouldn't move. I swallowed hard and forced out the next question, my voice deceptively steady. "Do you happen to remember what day he came in?" She furrowed her brow for a second, then smiled again. "Oh, let me check." She walked over to a sleek computer behind the counter, her manicured nails clicking against the keyboard. I stared at the glass display in front of me, at all the shining, meaningless jewelry. My stomach twisted in knots as she spoke again. "Looks like it was last Thursday. He was very particular about the gift, wanted it to be perfect. Oh, and he even had it gift-wrapped." She beamed at me, as if she were delivering the best news in the world. "Last Thursday, the night he told me he was working late." My hands clenched at my sides, my nails digging into my palms. I nodded, muttered something polite, and turned to leave before my voice betrayed me. As I stepped outside, the crisp evening air hit me like a wall, and suddenly I could breathe again. But breathing didn't change a thing. I walked home in a daze, my legs moving on autopilot while my mind spiraled into places I didn't want to go. The city buzzed around me, cars honking, people laughing, the usual symphony of life continuing as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Every step I took felt heavier, my chest tight with something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the slow, suffocating realization that I had been living in a lie. By the time I reached our apartment, my hands were shaking. I hesitated at the door, my fingers hovering over the handle, as if crossing that threshold meant stepping into a reality I wasn't ready to face. But I needed proof. Cold, undeniable proof. I swallowed hard and pushed the door open, my heart hammering against my ribs. The apartment was exactly as I had left it, cozy, familiar, ours. But suddenly, it felt different. I moved through the space like a stranger, scanning for clues I hadn't noticed before. And then, as if some unseen force guided me, I walked straight to his dresser. My fingers curled around the handle of the top drawer, my breath shallow as I pulled it open. There it was, a neatly folded receipt tucked beneath a pile of socks, as if he had wanted to keep it close but hidden. My eyes scanned the details, each line a fresh stab to the chest. Not an engagement ring, a $5,000 necklace, a gift-wrapped, carefully chosen token of love, just not for me. And then I saw them, the text messages. I don't even remember grabbing his phone from the nightstand, don't remember unlocking it, but suddenly, there they were, dozens of them. Sweet words, promises, plans, can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. I miss you already. My knees nearly buckled. Ryan wasn't planning a future with me. He was building one with someone else. I didn't cry. Not then. Not when I held the phone in my shaking hands. Not when I read the words over and over, as if seeing them enough times would change them. The tears would come later. For now, there was only the sharp, electric clarity of rage settling into my bones. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone screen, my mind eerily calm. The old version of me, the one who believed in love stories and happily ever afters, might have confronted him right then and there. She might have screamed, thrown things, demanded answers. But that woman was gone. I wasn't going to let Ryan see me break. No, if he was going to betray me so effortlessly, then I would make sure he knew exactly what it felt like to have his world come crashing down. But I wouldn't do it in the heat of the moment. I wouldn't waste my breath on rage-fueled arguments. I would take my time. I would be patient. And when the moment was right, I would ruin him. I set the phone down gently, smoothing out the crumpled receipt in my other hand. $5,000. A small fortune. I stared at the numbers, my lips curling into a slow, deliberate smile. If Ryan thought he could spend that kind of money on someone else and get away with it, he had another thing coming. The plan started forming before I even realized it. A slow, methodical unraveling of everything Ryan had built on lies. I wasn't just going to leave, I was going to make sure he felt every single ounce of betrayal he had inflicted on me. And it would start with the necklace. The next morning, I slipped it from his drawer, holding it up to the light. It was beautiful, I had to admit. Elegant, delicate, something he had never bothered to buy for me. My fingers tightened around the chain as a cold wave of satisfaction washed over me. He had spent $5,000 to impress another woman, and I was about to take that investment and turn it into my own personal victory. I walked into the same jewelry store where he had made his grand romantic purchase, feeling the weight of irony pressing against my chest. The same sales associate was there, her polished smile brightening the moment she recognized me. "Oh, back so soon?" I returned her smile, feigning sheepishness as I placed the box on the counter. "Actually, I'd like to return this." Her expression faltered for just a second before she nodded. "Of course. May I ask if something was wrong with it?" I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice as if sharing a secret. "Not with the necklace, just with the man who bought it." Her lips parted slightly, but she recovered quickly, nodding with understanding. "I see." She processed the return, handing me a sleek white envelope with the refund receipt inside. I slid it into my purse without looking. I already knew how I was going to spend it. Walking out of that store with $5,000 back in my account felt like reclaiming a part of myself. But the money was just the beginning. I wasn't done, not even close. Ryan had built his betrayal on secrecy, on the assumption that I would never find out. Now, I was going to make sure everyone knew. I started planning the reveal like an artist crafting her masterpiece. No rushed confrontations, no teary breakdowns. This had to be public, undeniable, something that would burn into his memory forever. A dinner. A perfectly orchestrated evening where he would think he was the one in control, right up until the moment I took everything from him. I sent out the invitations myself, making sure his closest friends and even some of his family members were included. A special dinner, just to celebrate us. That's what the message said. He bought it without hesitation. I could practically hear the arrogance in his voice when he texted back, "Can't wait, babe." That night, as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my dress, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't the same woman who had dreamed of proposals and happily ever afters. That woman had died in the jewelry store when she heard the word necklace. What remained was someone sharper, stronger, someone who understood that revenge, when served properly, was a dish best enjoyed with an audience. I picked up the sleek, beautifully wrapped box from my dresser, my fingers running over the ribbon. Inside was his final lesson, his reckoning, his downfall. And I was going to make sure he never forgot it. The restaurant was buzzing with soft conversation, the clinking of silverware against fine china, the low hum of background music meant to set the mood. It was elegant, warm, exactly the kind of place where people celebrated milestones, toasted to love, and made promises meant to last a lifetime. Ryan sat beside me, relaxed, confident, completely unaware of the storm brewing right next to him. He had no idea that the woman smiling at his friends, laughing at inside jokes, sipping wine with practiced ease, was the same woman who had spent the last week planning his ruin. I watched him soak in the attention, playing the part of the devoted boyfriend, his hand resting lazily on my thigh under the table. The audacity of it made my skin crawl. He truly believed he had everything under control, that I was still the woman who adored him, who trusted him, who believed in him. I leaned in, tilting my head just enough to let my lips brush against his ear. "I have a surprise for you," I whispered. He grinned, oblivious, his fingers giving my leg a squeeze. "Yeah? What is it?" I pulled back, my smile unwavering. "You'll see." The moment had to be perfect. I waited, letting the evening unfold like any other celebration. The wine flowed, conversations overlapped, laughter rang out in waves. Ryan was in his element, flashing that charming smile, entertaining his audience. I watched him soak it all in, completely oblivious to the fact that the ground beneath him was about to give way. When the main courses had been cleared, I stood, gently tapping my glass with a spoon. The soft chime cut through the noise, drawing everyone's attention. Ryan turned to me, brows raised, but there was no suspicion in his eyes, only curiosity. "I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for being here tonight," I said, my voice smooth, measured. I glanced around the table, making eye contact with each guest, drawing them in. "This dinner is special. It's a celebration, really." I turned to Ryan, my smile unwavering. A celebration of trust, of love, of honesty. He grinned, playing right into my hands. "A toast to us, then?" he said, raising his glass. I let the silence stretch, let the anticipation thicken. Then I reached down, pulling a beautifully wrapped box from beneath the table and placing it in front of him. His smile widened as he ran his fingers over the ribbon, completely unaware of what lay inside. "This is for you," I said softly. "A little something to show you how much you mean to me." The restaurant had quieted, the guests watching with polite curiosity. Ryan, ever the showman, played along, making a show of untying the ribbon, peeling back the crisp paper. His fingers lifted the lid, reaching inside, and then he froze. The color drained from his face the moment his fingers brushed against the contents of the box. His smile faltered, confusion flickering in his eyes as he pulled out the neatly folded receipt. He blinked, as if his brain needed an extra second to process what he was holding. And then, as if on cue, the printed screenshot slipped onto the table, spreading like damning confessions for everyone to see. Silence. A thick, suffocating silence that swallowed the entire room. I could feel the shift in the air, the weight of realization settling over every guest as their eyes flickered between Ryan and the evidence laid bare in front of him. His name, the messages, the proof of his betrayal. Ryan's jaw clenched, his hands tightening around the papers as if he could somehow make them disappear. "Emma," he started, his voice lower now, strained. "This isn't—" I didn't let him finish. I simply lifted my glass, standing tall, owning the moment. "To Ryan," I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a blade, "for teaching me the true value of a $5,000 betrayal." A gasp, a muffled laugh, the scrape of a chair against the floor as someone leaned in, whispering. Ryan's eyes darted around, desperate, his charm slipping, his mask cracking. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back, letting the distance between us speak for itself. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. Past the stunned faces, past the murmured questions, past the man who had gambled with my heart and lost spectacularly. I didn't look back. The night air was cool against my skin as I stepped outside the restaurant, the city humming around me as if it hadn't just witnessed the implosion of a carefully constructed lie. I exhaled slowly, watching my breath curl into the night like smoke. My hands weren't shaking, my heart wasn't racing. There was no regret, no second guessing, just an eerie, unexpected calm. My phone buzzed in my purse. I already knew who it was before I even checked. Ryan. desperate, scrambling, trying to regain control of a situation that had slipped too far beyond his grasp. I let it ring, let it go to voicemail, then it rang again, and again. I finally pulled it out, staring at his name on the screen. For a brief moment, a flicker of the past crossed my mind. The Ryan I had once loved, the man I had once trusted. But that version of him had died the moment I saw those text messages. I swiped to block his number. The second I did, a weight lifted. This is what freedom feels like, I thought, slipping the phone back into my bag. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. No sinking feeling in my chest. No waking up next to a man whose lies had woven themselves into the fabric of my life. Just peace. I stretched in bed, listening to the quiet, relishing the stillness that had once felt empty, but now felt mine. I made coffee, taking my time, letting the rich aroma fill the space. This was my morning now. No more waiting for text messages that never came. No more wondering if he was really working late. I had all the answers I needed, and more importantly, I had options. I pulled out the envelope from the jewelry store, running my fingers over the edge. $5,000. A part of me had considered using it to pay off bills, something practical. But then, I thought, why should I? That money was supposed to be spent on love, and if Ryan had wasted it on a lie, I was damn sure going to use it on something real. I grabbed my laptop and opened a travel site, my pulse quickening as I typed in destinations I had only ever dreamed about. A solo trip, something extravagant, something selfish, something just for me. The idea didn't just feel tempting, it felt right. 2 weeks later, I was standing at the airport, passport in hand, a single suitcase by my side. The ticket in my pocket wasn't just a destination, it was a declaration. I wasn't running away. I was stepping into something new, something unknown, something that belonged only to me. I had booked the trip on a whim, choosing a place that had always been on my list, but never seemed realistic when I was with Ryan. He had a way of making my dreams seem frivolous, unnecessary. But here I was, boarding a flight with his money, reclaiming what was stolen from me. Not just the money, but the time, the energy, the belief that I had to wait for someone else to choose me. As the plane took off, I didn't think about him. I didn't wonder if he was still trying to reach me, if he was embarrassed, if his mistress had left him after realizing she was just another pawn in his game. He was nothing more than a bad investment, a lesson learned. I closed my eyes, leaning back into my seat, the hum of the engines drowning out the past. My life wasn't something to be gambled with anymore, and this was just the beginning.